Hello, my name is Christopher Lara. I'm here today talking about narrative reflection. Narrative reflection on the Mars Maslow's hierarchy. Okay, here today I have a presentation to show you guys what it's about. All right. Okay, here we go. What is Mars Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Basically, it is a psychological theory that outlines five levels of human needs, arranging in a pyramid from the most basic to the most advanced. As you can see, there is five. The bottom one is psychological needs, safety needs, love and belongings, esteem, and then the top one is self-actualization. And on the side, it shows how it is expressed. What are some examples? Like it says, psychological needs, which is things that we need on the daily, like that we need to survive, which is like food, water, shelter, clothing, and whatnot. Sleep, reproduction, and just the fundamentals of biology. That's really just it, to simplify it. Safety needs, like personal security, health, well-being, stable environment, financial security, safety notes. It's just like how to make sure that you are well protected within yourself or within a community. Love and belongings. Okay, now this one is a little bit more tedious because it spans into a lot of bigger circle. It can range from family, friends, relationships, communities, romantic relationships, group members, affection, intimacy, jealousy, and whatnot. This is where like is what why I say it's so huge because it shows what is socially acceptable and what is best way to have to make deep connections amongst each other. Has how a man and a woman reproduce, how a man and woman fall in love and become married. Esteem is the next part of the pyramid would be esteem, which is self-respect, confidence, respect for others, reputations, ego, recognition, achievements, and so on. Basically, what makes us stand out and what makes us feel elevated that to keep us from thriving or keep us to continue thriving into a better life, into a better oneself. Now, the top one is the hardest, is self-actualization, which is the creativity of personal growth, moral development, pursuit of meaning, pursuit of happiness, purpose, like what is driving you to continue to wake up every day, do what you do, and and at the end of the day, you feel dopamine because you did one of the tasks that most people don't do every day, which would be like an example would be like going to the gym because most people don't go to the gym. They would rather stay home or sleep in and whatnot. Where the small percent of people who reach this level, they wake up early in the morning while most people are still asleep. They go to the gym, they work out, and then by the time they start eating, they're just starting their day. So in a sense, they are more a go-getter type of go get it type of person. They're more willing to put out the effort to get it done. And like I said, it's realizing one's full potential. Why is it important? It is important because, like I say in the three dots, provides a framework of understanding human motivation by showing how individuals progressive from satisfying basic needs to pursuing high-level ones such as self-fulfillment or pleasure. Like another a best way would be um how most of us an example would be how most of us high school, most of us I believe we graduated or at least graduated with a GED. That's something that's pursuing and that's fulfillment. You work to it every day, you go to school every day, you put in the work to do to pass your grades, excuse me, you get your GPA up and then you graduate. That is one of life's biggest stepping stones, in my opinion, personal opinion. Another would be, let's say, getting a promotion at work. I believe most people nowadays they have a job. Like getting promotion, you start, let's say, you start at a restaurant. You start as a hostess, then from there you work to a server, and then from there you work to a server, maybe to a cook and whatnot, and then from there you reach to assistant manager. And then from there you go assistant manager to manager and then general manager. Those are levels of that people continue to climb up to reach to the top. And at the end of the day, they look back to their younger self saying like how far they have gone to get to where they are now. And that gives them a high level of self-fulfillment. And why is it important too is because this basically teaches the basic understanding of psychology, of understanding how the brain works, and in suit that it helps how explain how individuals or groups behave when driven is needed. Like let's go back to the 13 colonies. When the settlers came, they didn't had much things to do. They just came here and farm, but they had a farm and they didn't had much, but they made do with what they had. And that gave them self-fulfilling to continue to do what they had to do for survival. And this was not just an individual behavior. This was a group effort, a group behavior because at the end of the day, no one to go home goes home and starve for the next day. Um, Another thing was that by going through this pyramid, the Maslow's hierarchy, you understand what areas of life that you need attention, what needs to be worked on, what needs to be fixed, what needs to be accomplished to live a better quality of life. Now, this is a debate right here. There has been a debate with Maslow's hierarchy versus um, Blackfoot, which is I believe was a native reservist area, I believe, where indigenous people still thrive. And this is where he studied Blackfoot, Blackfoot tribe in 1938, I believe. And this is where he made his ideas from. He brought these ideas. He lived with them for a certain amount of time. I don't really remember how long he lived with them, but he analyzed how they lived, how they slept, how they eat, how they did in the morning, everything. He studied everything and he understood, you know, and that's where the Maslow's hierarchy came to be. But the huge debate is that they believe that Maslow really left some things behind that was really very important and was a key factor and that he missed in a lot of his research. And how does it tie with indigenous people? Because it is just like how it ties to indigenous people is because the hierarchy shows in a way how indigenous people worked back then. How I would say is that um what would be a good way to put it in? Let's say a prince, I would say, because back then they had a hierarchy. They had a like a war chief and whatnot, and then they had their descendants, which would be their kids and whatnot. And their own kids had to go venture out for their own to prove themselves that they can be crowned the next chief and whatnot, or the next king. And this is where that ties into because the next heir of the throne or heir of the chief, they have to find their path of life and showing how that they can at a young age that they can be able to become a chief or be something bigger than just themselves. One thing that people like to say is the difference between the Maslow's theory was that his goal was to individualize self actualization versus the Blackfoot they believed in cultural and community actualization. Because as I was looking through Maslow's theory, it's more of a me, myself, and I type of hierarchy. Whereas Blackfoot, on their research, it shows that they function as a community. It is not a single person, a single individual. You fit into a bigger, you're a small piece into a bigger puzzle, if that makes sense. That you are a small cog within the machine. And like I said, Maslow's theory, is more of individual needs and process and accomplishments versus Blackfoot was collective well-being and harmony, with nature and amongst their peers. Their structure was Maslow's theory, hierarchy pyramid. Self-actualization is the final level of, as where that you want to be. Versus Blackfoot belief is a self-actualization is the foundation. That is the foundation level. For the motivation, Maslow's theory is fulfilling from scarcity to abundancy, versus Blackfoot's belief is abundancy and initiate potential is not a scarcity mindset. And on the self-actualization part, on Maslow's theory, a goal is to be earned through achievement and hard efforts, versus Blackfoot's beliefs is initiated and inherent by the community to help draw it out, which means that your achievements, your achievement and your goal and what you earn is not just for yourself, it is for the benefit of the community, which is like, let's say, how I said, the war chief, in most times in tribes, the son of the next of the king or the chief whatnot would have to go out and find let's say, the biggest, the most dangerous beast to kill. In doing so, it would prove them that they are able to take on a role as being chief. It goes dives into more deeper, but it makes sense in a way because in Maslow's theory, if you look in through that perspective, the son ends up, getting the kill and whatnot, and he earns his achievement to become chief. But as Blackfoot's belief, they said that, is inherent, which means that it's inherent and is given to you at birth, which means that you have to go out and help not just for yourself, but help out the community. And most of the times you can see in some movies as well, in some documentaries, that it does the same way. Like the king, or the son or whatnot gets the kill or not, but they let their community eat first, and the king gets to eat last. That's how that would work. Like I said, and here is the difference. Like I said, the Maslow's hierarchy is in a multiple stages of in a triangle versus the Blackfoot National is more of in a TP um theory, I would say. So and here you can see the difference was that it's the self-actualization, the psychology, safety needs, love and needs, esteem, and whatnot. And as you can see, there's so many more levels versus as Maslow's hierarchy versus as the Blackfoot. It's just three simple ones. Self-actualization, which is the foundation, community actualization, and cultural perpetuity, if I'm saying that right. And you can see how it flips. It's basically how Maslow is from psychology needs as the bottom versus self-actualization is on the top versus as the Blackfoot, it is flipped up on the opposite side. Self-actualization is on the bottom. Then the community actualization and then the cultural perpetuity. I can't say that right. I'm sorry. Mm, what I was gonna say too. When how comes the Blackfoot? The self-accusation is not just for them self-fulfillment, but it's also they're not thinking just for themselves, they're thinking about their community as well, like I was mentioning, versus, in the tribal the tribal in the old times. Some communities still do it. I believe, but it is a dying belief, I would say, because it's everything's being modernized as now as we speak as it is. And why it says self-actualization is the bottom because it builds the foundation to community actualization. Because once you reach your self-actualization state, you're able to help out not just yourself, able to help out your community and go from there and virtual and continue your way up to help your culture thrive, to help your culture be in the best state it is, where it's not going into shambles. And that would be cultural perpetuity. And here goes my portion. What is ethos, pathos, and logos? Okay, so ethos, in my words, would be I wouldn't say a synonym, but a more fitting word would be something that is it credible. Um, like what the author is trying to say, and what they're doing. What can they do to reel you in to you for you to trust what they're saying? Because a lot of times, a lot of people can say a lot of things and people don't trust it. But what is the hook? Ethos, like, and reference, what is the hook that catches you, what catches the reader's attention to believe what he's saying is true, or to believe that what he's saying, that maybe he's onto something. And that mostly is going by, like demonstrating something that we have going on now, like going on in modern society, like like subjects, like the subjects of the magma versus the Democrats and whatnot, debating whether which president was better, um, the government shutdown, stuff like that. Stuff like that people can talk about because they are able to, show that they know what they're talking about and that they have wisdom and they have good character. But it's not just that itself. Right? That's where also patho goes into emotion. Like, is there any emotion? Is there any emotional connection with the author in the audience? Which is more of like what that they both share together. What is something that they both share together, where that they would understand and the author can really relate to its audience and let them know that you are not alone. How I feel, you maybe feel the same way, or you may feel different and whatnot. That is not everyone's cup of tea, but that if there's any emotional connection with the author and his audience to make them to make what they're saying and what they're citing believable. Logos, another word would be logical. Not a synonym, but the best way to put it is, logical. Is it logically correct? Does it make logical sense that it's able to be obtained? Um, it's not just that it's able to be obtained. Is there any evidence pointing that what they're saying is true? Like I said for today about the Mars Maslow's hierarchy. This is backed up not just by science, but by also backed up by psychology, healthcare, and so on and so forth, and by history. And it also shows that there is a lot of conspiracy and a lot of judgment that needs to be ruled out because as we're, as a modern society, a lot of things are outdated. Here are my reference sites. Is Resilient, and the other one is Psychology Today, which was one of the sites that I use to bring out this picture right here, and also where I got the knowledge of about the debate, how it worked out, how did it came to be. And like I said, guys, that is it. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Peace out.